Chapter 10. In the hours before her die, Ruby Jones has slept on her anger and wakes up coated in it. Outside is raining heavily, but she barely noticed the weather. It is 5:55 a.m., early for her, but she's already up, pacing back and forwards across the small path made between her dress and bed. God, this studio is too small, filled up with unnecessary things. She straightens the TV remote, pats down the corner of the bed, shifts her hairbrush to the bedside drawer, does a 360-degree turn, then removes the hairbrush, turns the remote sideways again. This is how people go crazy, she says. I need to get out of this room. As she puts on her running shoes, Ruby hears a boom or thunder, or it could be the hard slam of a car door. She strains against the sound and then shrugs. No matter, she's not afraid of a storm. A little rain never hurt anyone. The street is empty as she exits her building and heads west towards Riverside Park, rain spiking across her face. At the first intersection, already saturated, she considers turning back, then remembers the pacing, the locked-in feeling she had since yesterday. Fuck it, she shouts out, and waits to cross with the signal. Though there are no cars on that part of the road, there is no one to startle on the street either. No dog walker with a twist of fleeces, no nanny carefully guiding a wobbly-legged toddler. As Ruby reaches Riverside Drive, she finally encounters cars. A row of them stop-starting, gushing by, each one sending up a spray of water as they pass. It is proof, at least, of other people, even if she's the only one out here running the train. Ruby considers staying on Riverside, but the pavement is narrow, and when car after car sends a mighty shadow her way, she pivots and heads into the park. It's darker than she anticipated. The sky looks as if it is closing around the trees, but she keeps going, sure there will be other runners and cyclists down on the waterfront trail. As she cuts to the upper level of the park, Ruby searches for the stairs to take her down to the water, but the thick clusters of trees on either side of her don't look like she remembered them to. Perhaps she has entered at a different spot today. Riverside Park is still new to her, and the weather may have turned her around somehow. She knows from her maps that the park stretches for blocks, streets above, river below, so it's not like she could get lost. She just needs to keep heading south, she tells herself, until she finds a landmark she recognizes, something to orient her. Still, she feels a brief flicker of panic. Thunder claps loudly overhead, and Ruby startles, rolls her ankles. A yelp of pain echoes off the trees as lightning jags across the sky, and she considers giving up, heading home. She stopped wiping her eyes and flexing her ankles when two northbound runners come flying past her. They nod, give her the thumbs up, and she immediately feels foolish for letting her mind run away on her. This is New York. You're never the only one anywhere. Feeling less jittery now, Ruby puts her head down against the rain and charges at it, mud splattering at her feet. As her feet hit the ground, she finally comes to a set of steps cuts into a sloping wet bank so that she has to descend gingerly, carefully not to slip on the well-worn stone. There is a short tunnel at the bottom of the stairs, graffiti and old urine staining the damp concrete walls. Emerging from the tunnel onto the waterfront path, she lets out her breath. Made it, and is surprised to discover that, left or right, the path remains empty of people. As lightning shoots above her, Ruby feels a corresponding flash of alarm, her sense of relief diminishing. There was supposed to be people down here. There are always people down here. How has she not noticed the severity of this storm when she sets out? She stops and leans on a railing at the water's edge, wills herself to calm down. She's not going to last long in New York if she lets a little storm scare her. This is just rain and some thunder and lightning, and a dumb Australian going for a run when everyone else was smart enough to stay home. Maybe they worked to an emergency message on their phones, flash flooding ahead, stay away from waterways, then rolled over and went back to sleep. No matter, she's not going to get swept into the murky waters of the Hudson today. Antipotent jogger drowns is hardly the way she's going out. She might freeze to death, however, as ice-cold raindrops run down her neck and soak through her jacket. Pushing away from the rail, Ruby heads towards a pier she can just see just ahead. She Think she remembers stairs just past where all the little boats are docked, a steep set that will take her straight back up to the street, allowing her to avoid the dark thickets of trees she ran through earlier. Calmer now, Ruby gets into a rhythm, watches as her feet slap against the wet path, one stride then the next. To her right, the river makes the same slapping sound against the rocks. Out on the water, boat rises and falls with the wind and waves, and across the river, the light of New Jersey filters through thick, dark clouds. It would be beautiful, she thinks, if she weren't soaked through to the skin. A rare opportunity to have this view to herself. She's approaching the Mariana with her foot cracks down on something round black. She must have come down on whatever it was with a full weight, because bits of plastic scatter around the path. Some random object meeting its end under her foot, discarded or lost, and now shattered. She hopes it wasn't important, whatever it was, and says a silent sorrow to the God of lost things. Running thoughts, she calls this kind of musing. Nonsense passing through her mind, cleaning it out already. She is less angry, more herself, or perhaps mercifully less. It's after passing another cluster of boats and a flooded rain falling, river rising, that Ruby notices her access to the upper level of the park is now completely blocked off by a tall chain link fence to her left, running parallel to the water. She obviously comes further south this morning than she realized, to a part of the park under construction. Now her planned exit is somewhat behind that fence. She's going to have to turn back after all. Fuck. Another clap of thunder, a flash of lightning even closer this time. Lights pulse across the river, and the yellowed windows of the buildings on the opposite bank go dark, like candles blown out. The rain is now coming down in one solid sheet, and it's so cold Ruby can see her breath goes floating before her with every exhale. She has little visibility beyond these apparitions, and she stops to get her bearings, wipes the rain from her face. She can just see a burnt black structure out there in the water, behind an uneven row of thick wood posts, partially submerged. This part of the running trail is suspended over the river. Just ahead, the tracks wind back from the shoreline before pushing outward again, creating a small U-shaped beach of moss, slime, rocks, and rubbish below her. High above, cars swoosh by on the sodden concrete freeway, but down here, no one. Reaching for the railing directly in front of her, Ruby bends, takes a few deep breaths. It is when she straightens up and prepares to kick off that she sees it across the tumble of wet stone and weeds. No more than 6 or 7 meters from where she is standing, there is something purple laid out on the rocks, right where the water slaps up against them. As Ruby squints through the rain, she sees something else flow out from the purple-yellow reeds, rising, falling with the water. There is bright orange too, glints of it. And as Ruby blinks through the rain and tries to focus, she understands what is she is looking across the rocks as fingernails and a hand, and the yellow is hair, and she knows is looking at a young girl's body before she feels it, before her heart punches hard in her chest, and her legs starting to give underneath her. Hey! Ruby doesn't know it's a whisper or a shout. Hey! It's more like a cry this time, something hoarse and desperate. Face down at the water's edge, the girl does not turn over. Ruby is not close enough to see whether the girl is breathing. As her heart starts to sound in her ears, she makes to climb over the railing, but her foot slips on the wet, her shin cracking down on hard metal. Electric blue and green flash behind her eyes. As she stumbles back, almost falls over. Still, the girl doesn't move, trying to ignore the pulsing pain in her leg, panic rising until she can taste it. Ruby pulls her phone from her vest pocket. Her hands are shaking so much she hits the wrong numbers on her passcode 3 times over before the screen unlocks. 911. That's the number you call, right? She needs someone to tell her what to do. Hello, yes, I think help. I can see someone by the water. There's a girl. She's not moving, I think she's not okay. I don't know what to do. Hello, yes, please. I think she's hurt. I don't know if I should go to her. Should I go to see her? Please tell me what to do. She's not moving. She's not responding. She's not turning over. Please. I'm not close enough to see if she's breathing. Tell me what I need to do. Please. She's not close enough to see that I'm not breathing. Standing across from my body, all that murky water in my mouth and my lungs stripped below the waist, blood matting my hair, left on the rocks to flower like a fish until I stopped moving, eventually pulled away mercifully as he plunged in and now strangers looking at my dead body. Now we're both scrambling to understand what it is we're seeing, what it is that's been done to me. I know now know what I know no I now know that you can cry, scream, howl like the wounded animal you are, and they do not stop. It does not move them. They keep going until there is nothing left, until you are broken apart, obliterated. Almost like you were never really there at all. Ruby Jones is my only witness. I understand this suddenly, explicitly, and I grasp at this singular certainty, feel my way along it until I find myself standing next to her, there on the waterfront path. She couldn't get to me, but somehow, someway, I make my way to her. I'm in awe as I reach out to Ruby, but my fingertips turn to rain, drips down her cheek, and a second truth slaps itself out above us. She can only see the husk of me, left down on the rocks. Turns out you have to learn how to see a dead girl to recognize her. For now, I can do nothing but wait, terrified beside this shivering stranger, knowing she won't be able to feel my presence. Find me for a second time until she's ready to see what everyone else has missed. Ruby is wrapped in something silver. Two kindly police officers keep calling her ma'am as they take turns with their questions, pressing gently against her confusion. She's trying to cooperate, trying to swim up through the cold, saturated brain, but her eyes keep going to their belts, to the thick black weapons heavy like rocks, thinking how easy it might be for someone to reach over and pull one free. Gasps a gun or baton, and she closes her eyes, and metal comes down against her skull, smashes through skin and bone, breaks her into 1,000 little pieces. She sees blood exploding, but it's just the sirens flashing, and the yellow of a girl's hair, and the slow, steady stream of uniforms making her way down to the river. She was moved away from the water once the forensics team arrived, but Ruby can still see the rush of activity down there. Always they make a crime scene of the body. She feels like she's going to be sick. The officers are staring at her. Ruby's has gone to her mouth. There is a metal on her tongue, and it tastes like gun. The cool, hard sensation of a barrel pushed against her face like a fist. She doubles over and throws up on the ground. Ma'am, are you okay, ma'am? Can we get you some water, ma'am? And the question stops as someone pats Ruby's shoulder. The female police officer, perhaps. The Ruby cannot be sure, because rain and tears have blurred everything now. Did you notice anything just before you saw her? Did you see anyone strange in the area? Did anything seem out of place? That's what they kept asking her when they first came down to the river, and she said no, yes, to all variations of these questions, leaving a useless trail of words between her and those people trying to help, because she saw nothing. There was nothing. There was just the rain closing in and the river turning and the place. She stopped to breathe before turning for home. What's going to happen to her? Her one question for them, left unanswered as she shivers in her silver wrap, and another siren keens its way towards the river. Later, Ruby sits on the tile floor of the shower, water hitting her shoulders, spraying over her skin. She watches as this water pulls at her knees, tries to think of anything but this morning. As she closes her eyes, she's immediately back there, and the water trickles over her body, turns red, covers her in thick, congealed blood. They think she didn't see. They think she had been moved far enough away from the water, but when my body was turned over, there was a bright red at my right temple, or where my temple should have been. Ruby wasn't supposed to see my face, but those nice police officers were still asking her questions as the others got to work. The ones who filled the caution tape with their gloved hand darting under and around it, and it's as if they did this all the time. She knows she knows she wasn't supposed to see that my face had been smashed in. What she doesn't know, in that moment, I looked just like my mother, the pretty distraught face of hers when I found her on the kitchen floor. I'm sorry, I wanted to say, the first of many times for all the things Ruby will have to deal with now. I know what it's like for the horror to follow you home. Ruby was taken back to her apartment in a squad car. She sat in the back and apologized for dripping rainwater onto the seat and tried not to cry when Smith, the female officer, assured her she'd done a great job today. Truly, you did everything right, Ruby. Officer Jennings agreed over his shoulder. Ruby had been so relieved to see their flashing lights approach, to hear the sirens as they got closer. She doesn't know how long she was alone by the river before they arrived. 5 minutes, maybe a little more. She spent the time sitting, standing, crouching, her phone pressed to her ear, a stranger's voice on the end of the line telling her to stay calm, reminding her that help was on its way. Ruby paced in the small circles throughout the call, trying not to look across the water, careful not to touch or move anything around her. Keep as still as you can, they say on the phone, and she knew what that meant by that. Someone was there before you, Ruby. Please don't disturb anything they left behind. They left behind a girl in a purple t-shirt, face down on the rocks, and it was clear someone hurt the girl. Someone did this to her. And maybe it occurs to Ruby that someone was still there in the park watching as she waited for the police to arrive. Maybe that someone heard her stumble as she tried to explain where she was, where the body was in relation to her, when she couldn't give street names or directions, could not look around and describe her surroundings, trying desperately to give the police the help they needed to find her. There's an overpass. I passed the boats. There are wooden posts sticking out of the water. There's a road above us. I can't see any signs. I was trying to find a way. Maybe this someone was watching Ruby the whole time, or maybe they were already long gone, and the girl had been dead for hours. Nobody said. How did the girl get down to the water's edge, anyway? Ruby had hurt herself trying to climb over the railing. She saw the investigator scrambling too, slipping on the wet rocks, struggling to find their footing as they approached the body. Was the girl already down by the water when she was killed, or did someone drag her off the walkway and throw her over the railing? How strong would you have to be to do that? Why would anybody do that? We both asked this question over and over. The shower's been running so long that the water has gone cold, and Ruby makes herself think of Ash. Heads for the only loop in her mind that feels familiar. Her one reliable distraction, remembering when she last saw him in person. She tries to focus on something alive and breathing and real. She has to think of Ash, of the heaving, bone-shaking sobs will start again, the ones that failed her when she first stood under the shower in her muddy running clothes, the water so hot it stung all over. Ruby's hands were trembling so badly she couldn't get them to cooperate, couldn't make her fingers unclasp her bra or lift her saturated top over her head as she struggled to undress. The hot water needled at her newly exposed skin, and the sobbing came up out of her as a howl, something animal and angry, something rage-filled, until it all emptied out, and Ruby was left sitting naked on the shower towels, hyperventilating. It was as if she couldn't remember how to breathe. She kept seeing the body, kept feeling the horror of waiting out there alone, with that yellow hair swirling in the water, sky thundering above her, and then, just as suddenly as the crying hit, Ruby clicked over into a kind of numbness, found an empty space behind her eyes she had never known was there, a place where she could stare unblinking, letting the water cool over her, just as she could tremble in a different way. Better to think about Ash, about the mess her life is in, because she can control that. She can live inside a comprehensible drama. She can be that woman, the mistress, the woman with no self-respect. She does not know how to be this other person, how to be someone who discovers a body. She does not know how to be someone who stood across from the body waiting for the police to arrive, counting to 10 over and over, answering the questions the 911 operator asked, and all the while staring at the girl on the rocks, wishing she could just lift her head, say hey, back at her, even as Ruby knew, looking at those exposed legs. The twist of the girl, that it was too late, that there was no point climbing down into the rocks because the girl was already dead. I found a dead girl today. This is the text Ruby sends Ash when she finally gets out of the shower. She types out the words and then switches the phone to silent, feeling the strange emptiness settle behind her eyes again before getting into bed, still wrapped in her towel. She stares at the ceiling, listening to the rain outside, not even flinching when thunder shakes through the walls. She gets up off the bed around 3 in the afternoon. She hasn't eaten. She can't eat. She needs a drink. She realizes whiskey specifically. The craving for the amber liquid, for the warmth of it, is her only sure thing. As if someone had fed her this, had fed her this as medicine long ago. She pulls on tights, boots, a thick sweater, all black. She feels safer somehow, wrapped in dark winter clothing. The kind that swamps her frame, hides her. She's glad. It's still raining outside. Cannot imagine sunshine or blue skies. The world has shifted in just a few hours. The way it always shifts in just a few hours is not years or decades. That's simply how we tally the axis shifts, how we adjust and recover from them. We think in years. How was this year? What's your New Year resolution? I'm so glad to see you this year gone, but it's really the hours that changes us. Ruby was a different person when she got up just a few hours ago. It is possible. She considers the girl was still alive back then. She thinks of me as the girl, the first of the many new names I will be given. I'm Alice, I whisper. The sound comes out in a rush of rain. Taking an umbrella from the front desk, Ruby heads back out into the wet. She makes it down the mostly empty streets quickly, heads toward the dirt floors and pearly lights of a small bar she has walked by many times these past few weeks, thinking this will be a place where she will be left alone to drink. But she won't be alone. She never again wants to be alone as she was this morning. The sole bartender is distracted by a TV screen on the wall when she walks in. A basketball replay has his full attention. When he sets down her whiskey, the glass is almost full to the rim. He returns to the game before Ruby can say thank you, and she turns away, relieved. He didn't want to make small talk. Slinking away with her drink, he sees two couches at the very back of the bar, ratchet and low to the ground, choosing the one in the darkest corner. Ruby tucks her feet up underneath her and is grateful for the first burn of whiskey in her throat, the small relief of it. Closing her eyes briefly, she wills her mind to be as quiet as this corner, this place, prays for the drink to calm her, flesh exposed like bruised fruit, a hand's blade across the rocks. She opens her eyes. The older serious guy who comes later, O'Brien, the homicide detective. He gave Ruby a card with his name on it, said they would bring her in a formal interview tomorrow, but she should call immediately if she remembers anything. He said people can go into shock at first, and sometimes when the shock wears off, they remember the important details better than they did at the start. You were in the park for a good 10 minutes before you found her. Yes, that's a real amount of time. You might have seen someone, and if you did, we want to know about it. If you call me straight away, okay, Ruby, if there's anything you remember better. The younger policeman, Officer Jennings, said Ruby did a great job calling 911 and directing the police to the body. He said she did a great job not being afraid, but Detective O'Brien, he seemed disappointed in her, like she could have been given him more. I didn't see anything, Detective, and now all I see is her. The door to the bar jangles open and a couple stumble through the doorway, backwards, shaking raindrops off the shared umbrella. The young laughing, and the boy kisses the girl full on the mouth before he heads to the bar. As the girl sits down on the couch next to Ruby, she never takes her eyes off the boy, even in her current state. It's easy for Ruby to see the new love shining off this girl. She's glowing with it, warming the room. Ruby thinks this young woman is so clearly in love with this young man today, in the same way it is raining today, and she found a dead body today, and she's drinking the whiskey in the afternoon today, Tuesday, 15th of April, 4 weeks after she arrived in New York City. Tomorrow these things will only be true of yesterday. Tomorrow it might be dry blue sky out there. Tomorrow she cannot say I found a dead girl today, and tomorrow this young girl will, with her shining eyes, with her love glow, may have loved a boy yesterday. She may have loved him with all the heat a body can generate until some chance thing he said, some small action, or maybe a large one, took hold of her new love and crushed it, pierced through the cocoon she had created. It only takes a beat, a careless word, a thoughtless admission for everything to change, so that tomorrow this young girl may find herself staring at the wall, wondering how everything is suddenly so different now, when at this very moment yesterday she was sharing an umbrella with a boy who kissed her in doorways, a boy who sheltered her and took such care. She'll wonder at how quickly all that care can disappear. He sits down with her today, this girl, and this girl puts her leg over his easy propriety. They were ripe with beginning, and Ruby already has prescribed them an ending. What's wrong with me, she wonders. Why does she assume she knows anything at all about this young couple's tomorrows? Surely some people find contentment and get to hold on to it. Surely some people find their person and stay with that person and make babies and a life with that person. Not just some people, in fact, most people. Ruby's the odd one out here, looking down, trying not to cry in this dingy bar. She sees her phone screen light up, message from Ash, through them in a row. The first two messages must have come through when she was walking to the bar. Opening them now, Ruby sees a series of question marks, and then time snapped a few minutes later. A misspelled sentence asking where she was. His latest message, fresh in her hand, in all in caps. Jesus, Ruby, what's going on? His text to him when she got out of her text to him when she got out of the shower. I found a dead girl today. I woke up to this. Curled up on her couch at the back of the bar, ready for another whiskey. Ruby doesn't know how to respond. What would she say? She was mad at him, at herself, and she went for a run, and then everything changed, and now she doesn't know what she feels at all. Maybe if she could talk to him, but she knows she can't call because he won't answer at this time of the day. Even as fingers hovers over his name, eventually she puts her phone away. She can explain what happened some other time. It's not like he can come to her, shelter her. In fact, it doesn't really matter. In the end, you can't get back what you've lost. You can't bring back the dead. There's a girl who died today, and Ruby doesn't even know her name. She'll need to wait for the police or the papers to tell her about the yellow-haired girl in her purple t-shirt and her orange nails and her bloody face. This girl, she thinks, will surely have something to say about all there is to lose. In the end, Ruby's glass is empty. She heads back to the bar, walks past the nuzzling, love-soaked couple, wanting suddenly to stop and tell them she's so very sorry for everything that will surely come their way. Thank you for listening.